Hi, I'm Billy, the Whisky Exchange ambassador, and I'm here today to have a chat with Ashok Chokalingham all about the wonders of Amrut distillery in India. So, Ashok, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, Billy? I'm fine, thank you.
I'm doing all right. So, to start things off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do for Amrut?
Right. So I'm working for Amrut Distilleries for the last 16 years. So I have started my career as a simple sales manager, and then today I assume the responsibility as a head of international sales and the head of distilling uh, since June last year. So completed 1 year after taking the responsibility for the production as well as sales.
Excellent. So you're based over in India at the distillery, are you?
That's right. Yeah. So I moved back from the UK to India, keeping this mission of being the head of distillery.
Excellent. Well, and so I didn't get a chance to say at the time, congratulations and well done for taking over being the king of the distillery as well. So
thank you.
Excellent. So Amrut is a distillery that have really sort of developed over the last sort of couple of decades. And our theme for the show this year is the ever-changing world of whiskey and how whiskey has changed. And Amrut's a distillery which has really changed over the years and become and shown other people how they can change as well. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit of a little history of Amrut and how you started and how you got to where you are at the moment.
Right. So as you all probably know, India is one of the largest consumers of whiskey in the world. Okay, of course, there is a controversy of what is whiskey and what is not. Let us basically put that aside for time being. Having said that, as a country, we are not strangers to whiskey at all. So it's like a part of our blood. So Amrut Distillery as a company is a 100% family-owned distillery established in 1948, right after the independence. So independence was in 1947, and then 48 the distillery was started. When it was started, it was like a mere blending and bottling unit where the founder Radhakrishna used to buy the spirit from the others and then blended and bottled and sold under his brand. So one of the earliest brands that we sold was the Amrut Triplex rum. So here Triplex basically means 3 times distilled. So if you look at the typical Indian rum brands, it's all 3Xs. So it's basically known for refining the spirit. That's what it means. So in 1964, we started to sell to the Indian Army, which is even today one of the largest customers of us in India. And then in 1974, we started to distill grape brandy because of the French influence in the southern state of Pondicherry. Developed a huge market for brandies in the south of India. So we started to distill our own brandy, and then we have a couple of good brands of brandies being sold in India. So until 1987, we were buying malt whiskey in bulk from Scotland and then used in our blended whiskey. So the import tariff was crazy, like in the tune of 300 to 350% in 87. It was simply an unaffordable situation where we could no longer import the malt from Scotland at that price. So we were forced to distill our own malt, mainly to use in our blended whiskey. So that's how the malt distillation started in our distillery in 87. And the aboriginal idea of the distilling malt is only to use in the blended whiskey. It was never meant to be bottled as a single malt. Of the simple fact, in 87, nobody would ever thought of bottling a malt whiskey from India because even the Japanese category was not established as what it is today. So as the time evolved, the grandson of the founder, the current day managing director, Rakshish Jagdale, he went to Newcastle to study his MBA. His marketing thesis was to find out the possibility of selling a single malt from India into Europe. So that was the embryo on which the Amrut single malt brand was built. So his thesis basically led us to tell that there is a niche market for a malt whiskey from India into Europe. So I would say like one of the earlier inspirations for us was the Japanese category. The Japanese category was like up and coming in the early 2000s. So when the Japanese can do, why can't we do? So that's another thought as well. So all this put together led us to launch India's first single malt into the global. So we are not the oldest single malt producer in India, but we are the first to come out of India with a brave heart and go and launch the brand in Scotland. So that's the humble beginning of how we started our single malt business.
Excellent. And that launch is still one of my favorite launches I've heard. If you're going to launch a whiskey from India, where do you do it? You do it in Glasgow. That seems like the most ridiculous thing to do, but at the same time, it seems to have gone really well, and it ended up being like a really sort of powerful start to the brand.
It worked both ways, I would say. For many, it was a rather questionable start, like selling oils to the Arab or coals to Newcastle kind of concept. But we were convinced by heart and as a product that we indeed have a good product. And that's the reason why we were so brave to go and launch an Indian single malt in Glasgow and not in India. But the initial period of 2004 to 9 was very difficult, very, very difficult, because people cannot get their head around with the concept of single malt whiskey coming from India, because nobody heard of it, or they cannot connect the fact that India can produce whiskey. So the first 5 years was very, very difficult to convince the consumers. So one of the things that we have done is basically we did a lot of blind tastings, and you also attended one of those in the Whisky Exchange in the early days. And that basically made people to realize that good single malt perhaps can come from anywhere in the world. When we showcased our brands with some of the best in Scotland, just for a comparison, not to say that is better than this, but how good our whiskey can compare with some of the best brands of Scotland.
Yeah, and I think that I've tried Amrut before, back in the early days and things like that. But I think the one which really brought it home to me was I was judging a whiskey award, and the first whiskey we tried of the day, we discovered at the end of the day, because we try everything blind, was Amrut Fusion. And we tried it, and we gave it all ridiculously high scores. And we said, we can't do this. The first whiskey of the day, we should leave it and come back to it at the end of the day, because that way we'll know where the scores settled. And this is a really good whiskey, but we just need to make sure of the standard first. So we came back at the end of the day, and it got a higher score. And that was the World Whiskey Masters in 2011, I think it was, when
11 or 12, yeah.
Amrut Fusion took the top, maybe 12, I think, took the top award as the top world whiskey. And ever since then, I've been sort of keeping an eye, because I've tried and went, it's nice whiskey, but you guys have always been experimenting, trying new things, and never really sitting still. So starting from something like Fusion, you tell us a little bit about what Fusion is, and sort of as a sort of core of some of your experimental ideas, what Fusion is and how that worked.
Right. So the matter of the fact is we don't have peat in India, being a tropical country. Rely on peat source either from Scotland or Ireland or wherever they're available. So there were two options. As you probably know, that peated whiskey is the backbone of the blenders, right? So we needed a peated whiskey. So what we did is, the climatic condition in Bangalore is not really suitable for peating, because the relative humidity is very low. Year round, you are looking at about 40 to 50% of relative humidity, which is not really good, because to do a good peating, you need to have plenty of moisture in the air for the smoke to get absorbed in the body. So as a result, we have decided to import the peated barley made to our specification from Scotland. So we have distilled peated malt, and then it was really good. And it was in 2008 when things are basically starting to turn around for us, where in 2004, the whole of the year, we have sold only 500 cases, including UK, and a couple of other countries in Europe. We were not going anywhere. But in 2008, we have managed to sell about 3,500 cases. So things basically, started to turn around. Then we have kind of depleted the inventory of peated malt at the distillery. So our past chairman, Neil Jagdal, who was passed away last year, he came up with the concept of mixing the peated barley from Scotland with about 25% of the total quantity and 75% of the whiskey distilled from the Indian barley, and mix them up and see how it comes up. And we all liked it because of the fact like the peat level is like so subtle. It's not basically going to blow your socks off. And this blending has been done in a cylinder, glass cylinder, and then we taste it. So then the next process was we married about 25% of the whiskey distilled from the Scottish peated barley, and then 75% of the whiskey distilled from Indian barley. And then we married them together in a bourbon barrel for 6 months to 1 year to see how it basically become homogeneous and fuses together. So what we found is mixing both on the glass and then blending them and putting into the cask and taking the sample after a year is a hell out of difference. Whereby the married whiskey was very homogeneous. The flavors really fused together, and it offered an enormous amount of complexity. And that's how the Amrut Fusion brand evolved. It's basically out of compulsion rather than we wanted to do something. So that's how the Fusion brand was born. And then today it basically conquered the world. It's by far one of the largest selling whiskey in our portfolio. It's funny, as we speak today morning, I got the result from IWSC, where Fusion got a gold with 95 points today.
Congratulations, well deserved. It's
Thank you.
It really is one of those ones where you see that development. You're making Indian single malt whiskey, and then sort of bringing something a little bit different. And ever since Fusion appeared, I've seen so many experiments like intermediate sherries. I think I described your intermediate sherry as a sherry sandwich. When you do sort of moving things between different casks, you've done your things where you've aged them outside of India, then brought them back again. Just all these sort of strange, weird, and wonderful things. But the one I really like, the one which is sort of most taken me, is Spectrum. So I know you've had a lot more to do with the Spectrum. The excellent posters of you as a James Bond-like figure are still some of my favourite of sort of whiskey advertising. Can you tell us a little bit about Spectrum and what it is and how that came about?
Right. So what I would say, Billy, is all the ideas are in front of you. It's a question of how you basically see it. For me, I would say the inspiration sort of came from Compass Box O'Cross, where John basically struggled to put the stave inside, and then lots of controversy in the beginning. So I know that you can blend whiskies matured in different kinds of barrels and bottle it. But on the back of my mind, it wouldn't be the same where if you mature a whiskey in a hybrid barrel comprising all different kinds of wood in one barrel. So I know, and people know that French oak was widely used in the industry for maturation for a different flavor profile, more aromatic. And American, obviously, very widely used for a good quantum of vanilla, coconutty, caramel notes. And then, of course, we have a Pieg sherry and Oloroso sherry and so on for finishing or maturing at full length. So I was like mentally visualizing how would a hybrid cask will throw up a flavor if you stitched all the woods together in one barrel. And one good thing for me is my line of command in my company is like very straightforward. There is no layers of hierarchy for me. It's me and my managing director. That's it. So I tell him I wanted to do that. And I would say 99.99% he has ever said no. He said simply go ahead and do it. So the moment we agreed on this concept, I just basically flew to Spain the very next week. We didn't even wait. And I sat with my family Cooper. When I say family Cooper, we are like very close family businesses. I told them that I wanted to build a barrel like that. Uh, the owner of the Cooper, he said, I am in this business for the last 45 years, and no one has ever told me to make a barrel like that. So the problem was the thickness of sherry stave is quite thick as compared to a standard American oak stave or French. And then you cannot char French oak. It'll throw up a lot of tannins. The French oak has to be toasted because of the high tannins. On the other hand, the American oak has to be charred heavily or at least charred free to get the enough flavors that one. And then sherry staves, whether it's a PX or Oloroso, you can't do anything because you got to just use it. And then, so we have chosen Spanish oak, new, French oak, new American oak, XPX staves, and X Oloroso staves. They have a different properties and different thickness. So no way on the earth you can build a barrel straight away with all of them together. So it was like a half a day of brainstorming how to do that. Then we came up with an idea where we made 5 individual barrels. First, a new American oak barrel with the chartreuse, and a French oak barrel with the toasting, and then a Spanish oak barrel with a very light toast because Spanish oak got even more tannin and it's can be very spongy as well. And then Oloroso butt has been resized to a barrel size, and then PX butt has been resized to a barrel size. So we built 5 individual barrels. Then we have dismantled all of them, then put one stave after the other for the 6th barrel. And then when I say the one stave after the other, all the 5 different woods coming into the 6th barrel. On the one side is a French oak head. On the other side is an American oak head. So we stitch together. The idea is fantastic. The barrel has come out beautiful, fine. Now the question is how the whiskey is going to turn. So in our experience, and most of the whiskeys, we prefer to mature the whiskey in an ex-bourbon barrel to give a good head start, build the body for the whiskey, and get enough of vanillins and caramel. And then we wanted to transfer to any experiment that we wanted. It's always been the practice that we have seen that work very well. So what we did is we transferred a 3-year-old matured whiskey from an ex-bourbon barrel into what I call it the spectrum barrel. And then first year, it was not promising at all. And then second year, it was changing course. And then third year, it was like a phenomenon. And so we have matured the whiskey in that barrel, spectrum barrel, for 3.5 years, and 3 years in a bourbon barrel. And that's how the whole thing came in. Before we released it, that's the time when we have Daniel Craig Spectre released into the market. So Spectre and Spectrum, and then we just made a fun out of it, and then came up with the poster that what you talked about, and that's how the Spectrum was born.
Oh dear. No, I'll find a picture of it and try and ask our videographer to pop a picture in here so everybody else can see how great it is. It's yeah, you're definitely. I reckon if we ever need a new James Bond, we should definitely come to you. You've got the look. So, but again, it's just it's absolutely crazy experimentation, but it is just a development of what you're doing. Again, it's not going. It seems mad until you sort of say, well, we were doing this, and we wanted to see what it would happen. It's experiments, and it's just like pushing what whiskey is. And I've seen recently, I think things like people playing around with orange wine and things like that. I know you played with orange infused sherries and things for Narangi.
Yeah.
So you're now, experiments that you've done are now sort of driving out into the wider whiskey world, and people are sort of taking their cues from the experiments you've done as well. But the question for you, though, the thing I want to know is, what's next? What do you have? Is there anything hiding in the warehouse or ideas you have at the moment that you can tell us about?
Okay. There are a couple of projects on the pipeline. One we are going to release into the market in October. If you look at what Amrut has done, is we respect a lot of what has been done in Scotland and in Kentucky. If you look at my back bar, I have all kinds of whiskey with me. I appreciate all of them, and often I take inspiration from them. But if you look at Amrut, a small family-owned business who came into the market only in 2004. Now, our single market campaign is as old as I am with the company. So I'm there with them for the day one of our single malt. How we evolved is something I'm proud of, but still I would say we got to go a long way. For example, you as a whiskey connoisseur know not many distilleries in the world has done 100% malted rye. Of all the, probably we are the only one or the second one who has done in including Europe. Danish single malt, they have done one. Stowning Distillery, they have done a malted rye.
Yeah.
After that, it's only Amrut here. So we have done 100% malted rye, which is a drum malted and distilled in a copper pot still, as opposed to be the American way of distilling, and then matured in a virgin oak barrel. So if you look at that, we basically touched all the areas, right? So one that left over was like Irish, and that's coming soon. So we have basically touched all the area of what others have done, and then we shown that we can also do that. And then the ideas like Spectrum and Narangi, two continents where they matured the whiskey initially in India and then in Europe in a contrasting climate. And then we have bottled one brand called Amrut Herald, which was matured in a tiny island in Helgoland in Germany. And not in the history of Helgoland, a whiskey has ever been matured. And Helgoland is at a sea level of about 10 meters above the sea level. Right? So the one in the Helgoland is like cool. Totally contrasting climate. Helgoland, the barrels where we have matured, the barrels were hardly 50 meters from the sea. So it had a lot of sea salt influence on the whiskey, which was previously matured in a hot and totally a dry climate. So we just wanted to see what the impact is going to be when you put the whiskey in a totally contrasting climate. So all sorts of experiments we were doing. And then I'm really hopeful that we would be able to release a brand hopefully next year or the year after. It is work in progress. It's a new era of finishing a whiskey. So we'll wait and see. And then, by the way, when this episode is going to be online, what you are recording?
This will be around October 2020.
Okay, that's fine. So anyway, so we have done triple distill, and it's going to be bottled this week.
Oh wow!
It's the first time ever triple distill done in Asia. I have done my research. I don't think any of the Japanese distilleries have done it either. So I can't think of it. So we are the first from this part of the world to do that, and
Right.
it's a quite old whiskey. It's about like 7.5 years and 5.5 years, two lots kind of blended together uh, to reveal the depth and the complexity. Uh, so that is basically going to be tasted in the Amrut pack on the whiskey show tasting pack.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so we have uh, the past, which is the 140%, the original, which was launched in 2004, which we don't no longer bottle. And then the present, which is the standard Amrut single malt, 46%, and the future, the Amrut triple distill. So it's what going to be tasted in the pack.
Excellent. Well, I said that for me, that's a preview, but for everybody else watching this is what you probably have the pack already. So yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, the rye sounds really. I knew you were doing some rye. I've seen little tales of that before in the past. That's really, really cool. It's going to be coming out soon. I really look forward to trying the triple distill. But to wrap things up, whiskey. You've seen whiskey change a load over the last 16 years, both at Amrut and around the world. What do you reckon the next thing, just in whiskey in general? What's going to be the next big thing in the whiskey world? Where are we going with whiskey at the moment?
I think I welcome the move made by SWA over the last year in terms of creating a little bit of flexibility in the maturation, in terms of using the mezcal barrels and you name it. And that is a welcome change. It is important for us to safeguard our tradition, and there is no denying. But uh, we should be allowed to do a lot of experimentation. You can do only two changes in the sense uh, changes in the distillation, obviously prior to that fermentation, the strain of barley, the strain of yeast that you use. That's the one area where you can bring in changes, where you can possibly do lots of recipes on the distillate. Then obviously the maturation is what's going to be the finishing game. So there is a lot of scope as far as I am concerned on the maturation area. So one of that scope is what we are going to bring out like next year or year after. That's going to be really cool. I'm seeing the product now. It's really going in the right direction. Uh, and again, as I, as I said in the beginning, everything is in front of you and you have to see through your eyes. So there are plenty of opportunities uh, in terms of creativity. And even if you look, one thing that I'm very proud at what we have done at Amrut Distillery, even going by the SWA rules, although I'm not, I don't need to be compiling with that because I'm an Indian whiskey distillery. But still, all the whiskey single malts in particular, what we have produced so far is in strict compliance with the SWA. We haven't broken any rules. Even in Spectrum Barrel, we have only stitched different staves. We didn't put anything inside or did anything wrong. And even in Narangi, we have only flavored the barrel, where we marinated orange peel in sherry and let the combination sit in the barrel for 3-4 years. And then we removed every bit completely. And then we filled our whiskey. We didn't do anything illegal. So within this framework, there are plenty of opportunities to work around. So one of those experiments, what I am foreseeing to be released next year or year. So there are plenty of opportunities there to work around.
Excellent. And that's why I sort of see happening all the time. More experiments, more interesting new things, and people taking ideas like, as I said, people taking your ideas and moving them on. You taking the ideas from the Scotch whiskey world, moving them on. The future of whiskey just seems to be more experimentation and more interesting things coming out. And
yeah, it's going to be for sure. And I'm also like thinking how to mature it longer than what we have done before. Like we have done 12-year-old before. Can I basically push the boundary further up on the maturation? Is what we are looking into that as well. but it's going to be a very costly affair. But nevertheless, we are going to try.
Excellent. Having tried your very, very old 12-year-old whiskey before, which, you know, in India makes perfect sense, but, you know, in Scotland, a very old 12-year-old just seems very, very strange. I really look forward to seeing what else you do, because, yeah, there'd be some really impressive things when you've been pushing the boundaries of what you guys can do. So
yeah, I mean, for us, it's very clear. We got to be innovative, and yet the product has to be good. Constantly, we are working towards that.
yeah, well, excellent. Well, I look forward to seeing what comes next, and I look forward to trying it even more. So, but
Yeah, you
Ashok,
should. You should.
thank you very much for joining me today, and yeah, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I'm sure I shall see you soon at a whiskey show in person when we finally get you back to the UK.
Thank you, Billy. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you.